I have been traveling the United States and literally have the men stand up. And I say, I give you full permission to be a man, to be masculine. And I was at a chapel last week and this beautiful young man came up to me and he said, I don't even know what that looks like anymore. Wow. I mean, that is so wrong.
But before we get into our conversation, my name is Eric Metaxas, and this channel exists to bring you a biblical perspective on today's news, culture, and hot button issues. If you're new here or not, welcome, and be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you are notified when new videos get posted. It is a joy, a privilege to be sitting here in the studio with Lisa Bevere. I think you may know of her. Lisa, welcome.
Oh, I'm so thrilled to be here.
You have a book out. I'm excited to talk to you about it. The title is The Fight for Female Reclaiming Our Divine Identity. Anybody listening right now knows that this is at the heart of the spiritual battle we're going through right now. So where do we start? What got you thinking that you have to write about this?
Yes, well, I had a dream way back in 2016. And in my dream, I found myself in a room of women. And when I got a little closer, Eric, I realized that all the women were kind of holding something close to their chest. And
okay, folks, I've heard about the dream and it's creepy. Are you ready?
It's totally creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was different rainbow-colored baby dragons. And they were dressed in children's clothing. And I found it so confusing.
Now hold on.
Yeah.
To have this dream now, you kind of get it. It would still be sick and creepy. But in 2016.
It's March of 2016. Yeah.
That is amazing.
It was bizarre.
Let me just ask you, what did you think when you had the dream? What did you make of this bizarre dream?
Well,
rainbow-colored dragons dressed and they're cute and they're dressed in children's clothes. Very creepy.
And the women protecting them. Like, it was like, I went from woman to woman and I said, do you understand you're holding a dragon? And they kind of shook their heads at me like, she doesn't understand. They are like, these are different dragons. These are the wise, kind dragons. And Eric, I was like, no, there is no agreement between daughters and dragons. And every single woman just kind of protected her dragon from me. And near the end of the dream, a woman extended her dragon towards me and said, here, hold it. And what I did in my dream is I reached out, I grabbed the dragon's neck, and I broke its neck. And I woke up, and I was on my back with my arms flying through the air. So the dream had entered the physical realm. I was like, what just happened? I'm a little peaceful side sleeper. So I typed out the whole dream, sent it to somebody like, do you have anything? And in 2016, nobody had anything, but I had typed out the dream. And then I start to see what is happening. I start to see the women. And can I go a little bit further with that? The feminists partnering with this alliance between daughters and dragons. And I'm like, what in the world?
This is, I wanted to say this. I remember when I was at Yale, I was like a sort of Christian, not really. But I remember having a sense there was somebody who worked for the feminist magazine at Yale and was talking to me, would you write something for or something? I said, well, but then I said, but from a Christian point of view, I said feminism in the pure sense is correct. In other words, the way Jesus treated women that were made in God's image, male and female. And so there's a reason that real Christians have been at the forefront of genuine advocacy for women. We're not talking about feminism as we understand it. What we're talking about here, the feminist movement, has twisted this in a bad direction, and we now see how bad. I mean, it's amazing when you talk about women at the forefront of the feminist movement, in a sense, destroying womanhood, destroying the concept of womanhood. It's astonishing stuff.
Yeah, and it's destroying family. So it was very interesting for me when I began to do a deep dive into the roots of feminism, because I always thought maybe it just went a little sideways later. The mother of feminist thought is a woman named Mary Wollstonecraft, and she gave birth to Mary Shelley. She died in childbirth.
Who wrote Frankenstein,
which is not a good mindset for either women or men. And what I'm finding out now is, why aren't the feminists using their voice? when women are being displaced in athletics, in schools, they're being hurt, when men are invading formerly women-only spaces, the feminists are largely quiet. And that is because since 1969, they've had an agenda to break down the American family. And I was in shock when I began to read about the roots of American feminism. I don't know if you read any of that, but 12 women, Greenwich Village, got together and they said, why are we here today? And they said, to make a revolution. What kind of revolution? A cultural revolution. And why are we doing this? We want to destroy the American family. And how are we going to do that? We're going to destroy the American patriarch. And how do we accomplish that? By taking away his power. And how do we do that? By destroying monogamy. And how do we destroy that? By promoting promiscuity, eroticism, prostitution, and homosexuality. And then they went on to form NOW.
Look, let's be clear. It's satanic.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting about it is that these women who have done this traditionally in the feminist movement, they never seem to have any idea, because this is what happens when you partner with Satan. He uses you to destroy yourself. It's the most amazing thing, because you think you're involved in something good to accomplish something, and you go along with it, and you end up destroying the very thing that you might have wanted to protect in the beginning. When you're talking about the National Organization of Women, 1970, this is people like, I guess, Gloria Steinem, Betty Friedan, Kate Millett. Mm-hmm. Kate Millett in particular, because I'm friends with her sister, who is diametrically opposed to this. It's Mallory Danaher, who's been on this program.
Which is where I've got the article from.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There was an anger there with somebody like a Kate Millett, a profound anger, I would say, at God the Father, and a desire to burn it all down.
Yeah.
And we've followed this through the decades, and we're now at a point where women are being erased. Bull markets turn everyone into a stock market genius. Bear markets reveal who truly is. If your portfolio isn't hedged, you're gambling. A single market correction could wipe out years of gains. For nearly a decade, my friends at Noble Gold Investments have helped investors diversify by adding gold to their portfolios. Gold may help you preserve your upside potential and limit your downside risk. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com and learn how easy it is to incorporate gold into your investment strategy. noblegoldinvestments.com. Lisa Bevere, this is why you wrote the book, The Fight for Female, Reclaiming Our Divine Identity. At what point did you realize I need to write a book about it?
So I've always been an advocate for women having a voice in the church. I've always been an advocate for male and female. And when I started to watch what was happening in the culture, it started to hit me. And I was speaking somewhere. I was speaking in San Antonio. And afterwards, an older woman came up to me and she said, "Did you ever know Derek Prince?" And I said, "No, I actually didn't." She said, "Well, I hosted him and we drove him back to the hotel and we turned around and we discovered he was weeping. And we said, 'Brother Prince, what is wrong?' And he said, 'I see an attack coming against the women. And if the enemy can get the women, he will get the children.' And she said, 'You need to preach. You need to write. Do not draw back.' And, I just thought, as long as I have voice and influence, I'm going to actually go forward with this. And this is not flesh and blood. This is not toxic men. This is a dragon in our shadows. And I don't think we understand the purpose of that dragon. He does not like male and female. He understands that they're a power union. So he now has women being erased by sexualizing them, or in the church, silencing them. And silenced and sexualized is a very, very narrow path for anybody to walk.
Well, again, just to break it down, Satan hates God. He hates those who are made in the image of God. He hates men and women, and he is at war with that. And so we've seen the attack on men. If you can take down the father who is protecting his family, you can get the family. Now we're seeing it as the attack on women, and it's always both. I wrote in my book, 7 Men and 7 Women, each of them, where when you attack one, you are attacking the other. The idea is to divide and conquer. And when we talk about growing up in the 70s, as we did, you see this idea of the battle of the sexes. The battle of the sexes is from the pit of hell. God doesn't want a battle of the sexes. God wants male and female to work together to his glory. And so this interesting divide, smash the patriarchy, whatever it is, it's just wicked. It's designed to hurt God.
Absolutely. And women, it's interesting. There's something, of course, enmity, which is a hatred that the longer it exists, the greater it grows. And so there is a unique hatred towards women because we actually carry life. So crazy but true story. I live in Franklin, which is a Christian bubble. And I went out to a coffee shop in a t-shirt that said, "The future is male and female."
Oh.
And I had I had men coming up to me saying, "Thank you. Thank you for including us in the future." I was like, "You're welcome." I had women coming up and saying, "I need that t-shirt." So I thought everybody's happy. So I take a selfie with that t-shirt on in my car. And I just wrote, "The future is male and female," because without male and female, there is no future.
This is the key to me, right? When we're talking about women, what is God's view of women? Who are women? One thing I think that we have lost, in the Protestant evangelical world, we've kind of thrown out Mary, like we forgot about Mary. Always at the center, for 15 centuries of Christendom, you have Jesus, and then you have Mary, and Mary is always pictured with the baby.
Yeah.
The mother, this divine picture of womanhood. It's so sacred and glorious. We've sort of forgotten about that and have participated, ironically, in allowing the enemy's view of women to creep in even to the church.
Yeah, because the Catholic Church deified Mary, we've denied her. And that is just a very big mistake. And, so when I actually saw this reaction to just the comment, "The future is male and female," I decided to look up the origin of the quote, "The future is female." I don't know if you've ever done that.
No.
So I just typed into Google, what is the origin of the quote, "The future is female"? And a Washington Post article came up. And its origin was a lesbian separatist group called Labrys. And you think, what's Labrys? Well, it's the two-headed axe carried by the Greek and Roman goddesses and the Amazons. And they said the future is female was a call to war, an invocation, and a spell to cast.
And a spell to cast. Now this is
this is demonic.
I want people to understand what we're talking about is spiritual. This is not political or cultural merely. It is spiritual. And you get more and more of this. When you hear feminists talking about strong women, it always goes into witchcraft. It leans into witchcraft as though, oh, this is good magic. You don't understand. This is good magic.
Yeah.
When you talk about the dream of the dragons, it's the same kind of thing, a really naive participation with evil spirituality.
Yeah, it's very Luciferian. It's very self-worship. It's very self-centered. And what was crazy with this organization, Labrys, 25% of the proceeds go to Planned Parenthood, not profits. Proceeds. And who brought it back in 2015 was Hillary Clinton. So what I opened up with in the book, I realized that what started with a dream needed to end with a do, that we needed some female heroes, that we're in a season of Exodus, which is the difference between the way things are and the way they should be. And God has always partnered with women. We see what happened when we've got the midwives that rescued the males. Then we've got a mother who hides away the son. Then we've got the sister. And then we've got Pharaoh's daughter who educates a woman of influence. And so God is looking for women who will remember who they are and remember that men are not our enemies, but they are our co-heirs.
Well, any man, any good man knows that he loves women and wants to support women because he understands that there is no dichotomy, that God has created us male and female to help each other. We're to help and to love each other. So this idea of division is definitely satanic. Really, the culture was going back to the 60s, this idea that it's men versus women. And it harms men and it harms women. It harms everyone. And it's amazing that the modern feminist movement has participated in this down to where we are now with your dream, that radical feminists have embraced the transgender lunacy. It's just, it's so utterly illogical.
Well, we were warned. Revelation chapter 12 says, "And then the dragon was enraged with the woman and went to make war with her children. So he's always after our children because we fight with our generations. Our children are arrows in the hands of a warrior. And so I think that the enemy hates women the most because he knows that we carry life. And so when we're going through this, it's shocking to me that women were okay with men presenting as women. They're like, yeah, I can share that. Yeah, you can be that.
Yeah.
But you know what's so crazy is I'm not happy with men pretending to be women, but women have been pretending to be men now for about 30 years. We have gone into the world and we said, oh, if you want to be a powerful woman, act like a man. Well, I don't want to act like a man. I want to know what my divine identity is as a woman. And as a mother of 4 sons and a grandmother of 9, I'm not just fighting for me, I'm fighting for the next generation.
What you just said is exactly right. Women have falsely been persuaded that they should operate on men's terms. That's a lie from the pit of hell. Mm-hmm. Women are created by God in his image to be women, right, and not to be sort of men. Yeah. But this goes both ways. I mean, no man can be any kind of a mother. The greatest mother in the world can't be a father. The Lord designed us to have both in his image. Catchphrase, the future is female, was picked up by Hillary Clinton. Yeah. What fascinates me is it's inherently divisive. Yeah. There's a nastiness to it because you think, well, wait a minute. The future should be for everyone, because really good men want to bless women. But this idea that's saying, no, it's either about you or about you. It's a zero-sum game. That's not the way God operates, but it's the way the left in America has pushed forward the devil's agenda, I'm sorry to say, with the complicity of the right.
Yeah, it's always going to be divisive. It's always going to leave someone out. Well, what was so crazy, Eric, right after I discovered the roots of the quote, the future is female, my grandson rode his bike over to my house and he walked in, goes straight for the pantry because they're always about food. And I looked at him and I said, Asher, what are your thoughts on the quote, the future is female? And he just paused and he said that I'm unnecessary. And I was like, whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what we want to say to our husbands, our brothers, our sons, our coworkers, that they're unnecessary?
It is what bitter, angry women want to say, but it's not God's will that women be bitter and angry.
No.
But if they are, that's where they go. And listen, let's be clear. Let's be clear. You want nasty, women-hating men? Keep that up. There are men that have been treated poorly, and they're looking for someone to blame, just as women who have been treated poorly are looking for someone to blame, and the enemy is only too happy to tell you whom to blame. Mm-hmm. In many cultures, just, blame the Jews, blame women. Just find a group to scapegoat and to really direct your satanic rage against them. Mm-hmm. And that's where we are.
Yeah, it absolutely is where we are. And here's the thing. I don't know if you know this, but I was shocked to discover that the suicide rates of young men, 24 to 35, are the highest they've ever been. And God created woman to be an answer to the very first problem. And that first problem was it's not good for man to be alone. But when women act like men are alone again. And so we have this situation where we need to remember as women, we were not an afterthought. We were a necessity. God said, when I add in the woman, she takes what is not good and she makes it so very, very good. Women are multipliers or dividers. And, I get a lot of pushback, Eric, because people say, well, there's toxic masculinity. Well, you know what? There are toxic men. I will say that. But there's also toxic women. And I have been traveling the United States and literally have the men stand up. And I say, I give you full permission to be a man, to be masculine. And I was at a chapel last week and this beautiful young man came up to me and he said, I don't even know what that looks like anymore. Wow. I mean, that is so wrong.
I mean, it's so funny. That's literally why I wrote my book, 7 Men, because I knew even back then, this was 2013, but I said, we're having a crisis where young men in general, need to know what is God's idea of a man.
Right.
Because we don't see it much in the culture. You might see it in your own father or grandfather or friends, but in the culture, that's been destroyed. What is God's idea of women? That's why I wrote 7 Women. We live in a culture that has embraced these lies that you're talking about in your book, and that has presented false ideas. You talk about sexualizing women. Talk about erasing women. When you sexualize women sufficiently and you get porn, a lot of guys are like, you know what? I don't need the trouble of an actual relationship. That's how sick it is. We're erasing men and women.
Yeah, men are having more virtual sex than ever, but very little actual sex. And that means there's no intimacy, which that means there's no life. And people are being so demeaned. And to be honest with you, we are taken to the lesser, when God is actually calling us to the greater, to the more. And the enemy is saying, oh, you are your sexuality. No, we are not our sexuality. We are our divine identity. And certain things that we have, those are roles, but that's not identity. And, having 4 sons, I was very sensitive a long time ago how culture mocks the men and celebrates manipulation in the women. But manipulation was never the highest form for women. Wisdom and kindness was. And so, even getting married, Eric, I came from a very dysfunctional family, and I had to say, all right, am I going to try to be the man in the situation? Or am I going to actually believe in my husband, let him make mistakes, and understand that me being the head of the household is a yoke to me, but it's a mantle to my husband. And I'm going to step back and really just celebrate his strength, because all he's ever known is a mom. And I cannot be his mother. I've got to be his wife.
This is such powerful stuff. I mean, we can go in so many directions. I guess I want to say that I think I get hope because I think things have gotten so bad, things have become so obvious, so obviously demonic and sick and broken, that a lot of normal people are waking up and saying, this can't be right. The idea that a man can become a woman or that a woman can become a man is patently preposterous. Everyone knows that. Maybe you won't say it publicly, but everyone knows that madness has overtaken the culture, and the idea that you're supposed to go along with it, provide your pronouns. I think a lot of people are saying, you know what? No,
That's petting a dragon.
What's that?
That's petting a dragon. That's saying something that is dangerous is safe, and we cannot be complicit. But there was 2 pandemics released. There was the pandemic of COVID, and then there was the pandemic of cowardice. And the church better recover its voice, because we are allowing people to fill the void, and people follow courage. And right now, those that are propagating lies are more courageous than those who carry truth.
I mean, I said this in my book, Letter to the American Church. We are dealing right now with a spiritual war.
Yeah.
And if you're going to a church, folks, that is not in the war, courageously speaking God's truth, for the sake of your soul, get out of that godless church. Jesus cursed the fig tree. God, people say God is love, but God is a judge. And we're in a war right now. Lisa, I'm just so grateful for you. We're out of time. Congratulations again on the book, The Fight for Female, Reclaiming Our Divine Identity. Lisa Bevere, thank you.
Yeah.